This session is sponsored by Quixel, the makers of Megascans. Quixel is on a mission to scan the world, offering us an all-encompassing library that we've dreamed for so long. You've heard the story by Quixel founder Teddy Bergsman in session number 3. If you didn't yet, you should. Visit the Megascans library by clicking on their link or banner in the show notes and explore their full environment packs and individual assets you can use on your next project. Hi everyone and welcome to The Spectrum. I'm your host, Ronen Beckerman, and this is my weekly experiment exploring the creative minds of architecture visualization, finding out what makes us all tick and push our limits. This week, I'm joined by a previous guest of the show from session number 1, Pedro Fernandes from Arqui9 in London. Pedro's story spans Australia, Portugal, and London in the UK. We'll talk about his days as an architect in Australia and Portugal and his gradual move towards visualization as he was teaching fellow architects in the Lisbon office about rendering and finding out he loves doing visualization. Seeing that fork in the road, he went right and never looked back. We'll dive into the Arqui9 way of making images, discuss why London is the best place for this, and talk about Arqui9 Learn and teaching. Here we go everyone, session number 9 with Pedro Fernandes. Let's roll. Hi Pedro, it's nice to have you on the Spectrum.
Hey Ronan, it's a pleasure to be here, to be part of this, so thank you very much for having me.
Sure thing. We've been planning this one for a while. I think last time we were speaking and on record was at the State of Art Academy number 5, I think.
Yeah, it was. Number 5. Yeah, I was there, presenting that year.
Cool. So for those that didn't listen to that one, and obviously they can on the Spectrum session number 1, the special collection of the State of Art Academy number 5. So once this is done, you can jump and listen to that short interview I did with you back then. But please tell us about you, the background story, and how did you came to work in the architecture visualization field?
Oh gosh, that's a big one. You told me about this, so I kind of wrote this down a little bit, just because it's been one step at a time type of progress. So just to basically start off, I think this started when I was in uni. So when I was in uni, I always had this passion for demonstrating visually what I was doing, and it was, you see the competition mags and see the architectural magazines, and that always kind of seduced me, being able to show your ideas the way you want to. And I thought that was the key. Although in uni, at that time there wasn't so much info online and I was experimenting, but there's never time for anything. So anyway, so from that point onwards, I always had this interest and it motivated me along my career. And then I guess once I finished uni and started interning, and I interned in Australia, I really got into 3D, especially at the studio. It later then progressed into Lisbon, where I also came back and did an internship for the architectural order. And then I just started cultivating this passion, and it just gradually developed. From then on, I started to work for myself with a few friends, and we had a small office doing architecture, 3D and design. And at some point in the road, I think that I just started to see the tutorials you had on yours. So I think I was like one of the first subscribers, Ronan. I was like subscriber nice. 400 or something. So, I saw from various points of the internet, I was sourcing tutorials everywhere and really learning for myself and trying to deconfigure everything I was learning. So from that point onwards, I had to make a choice, and we're talking about 2008 or something where I had to make a choice. The economy was going down. I was doing architecture. It was not the most fascinating thing, although I loved it. And it kind of became a natural choice of talent, economic, and the current state of economics throughout the world. So it all kind of combined into one, and it became a natural choice where I left architecture and I really started to get into the 3D world. From then onwards, I started freelancing for offices outside. Well, not freelancing, basically had my own company, and I was doing small things. It was semi-freelance, semi for myself. I think I was freelance. And I was doing for my office back in Australia. I was doing for my ex-office. And then slowly it just started growing until the point that, I just said, well, you have to be with the best. And to be with the best for me at that point was being in London. So I just, one day I just lost it and basically sent out my portfolio everywhere. And I said, no, I can't do this. I have to really take the risk. I sent it out. I think it was Uniform, Vionics, 10, and a couple other studios, which for me were a reference at the time and still are, many of them. And it was crazy. Got interviews everywhere. And that blew my mind and told me, wow, this is... I think I have something here, or basically it's probably easy to get interviews. So I thought, I went to Vionics and I really learned a lot. And from that point onwards, it was freelancing throughout London. And I worked with great professionals, really amazing talents everywhere. And from then onwards, after freelancing, the natural step was to work for myself and gradually build a business out of this and gradually employ people and build a team. So this was a very natural, long progression. Nothing was really overnight, I guess.
Yeah, so let's try and put some dates on this so people can have a grasp of the scope of the story. So uni, that was in Portugal, right?
Yeah, so that would have been like 2007. 2008 that I finished, 2007, something like that.
Okay, and you studied architecture, right?
Yeah, I studied architecture. Yeah, I did the full Monty in architecture.
Okay. You didn't jump ship like me.
No, I didn't jump ship. I don't know. I loved architecture. I still do to some point. It's funny because this day and age, I get asked to do architecture, and I always think, where were these people when I was starting off my career? And I get asked to do it, and it's at a point that I love it. I mean, we deal with architecture every day, but I just had a family member came up to me and asked me to work on their house, and I thought, oh, great, it's a passion project. But it just gets to a point, and I worked very hard on it. It gets to a point that you don't have the exercise for it. It's like if you go run a marathon. From one day to another, and you've run marathons in the past, you can't run that marathon. So that really made me see that, although I deal with this every day, I don't deal with the technical and certain aspects of architecture which kind of comprise architecture, which is really funny because I've met people who still do it to this day and still have that passion and really say, well, architecture for me is my passion and I'm never going to leave it. And then you always feel kind of bad because, architecture is like 6-7 years, right? So it's a big chunk of your life to abdicate. But at the same time, I think it's one of the greatest preparatory courses in the world, which really, it really builds you up. If you're ready for that, you're ready for war, Yeah.
If you're in the arts, then an architecture degree is probably the best one that, prepares you across a wide field of disciplines.
Yeah, exactly. You have architects doing everything these days. Everyone does everything these days, but architecture seems like, I remember architects that open restaurants, architects that become visualizers, designers, hotel managers. It prepares you really well.
One of them directed Tron. So
yeah, exactly. Joe Kosinski, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his work. So
so there's no limits actually. So Australia, what was it there? You mentioned you were doing an internship.
So I grew up in Australia. That's why I have this very crazy accent, twang, or whatever you call it.
Okay.
Some people think I'm South African, which is no problem. But so as I grew up there and I have family there, and being the adventurous person that I am, I thought it would be a natural thing to go there and try it out and see how it was. I didn't know much about architecture in Australia at the time because we studied. I mean, in architectural school, you tend to study, Rem Koolhaas, Corbusier, all these guys, but they're generally in Europe and America, and even China, really. And I had not much idea of what was going on down under. And I thought, it's great. Let's see what I'm missing, because I came back I don't know. I must have gone there I must have come back to Portugal when I was 15 or something. And I thought, I want to see what I'm missing. And yeah, so I had to. I remember specifically not having done my portfolio. Enjoyed the summer holidays like crazy at that time. And I thought, I'll just do my portfolio when I get there. And it was a crazy one, because I got there and I didn't have my portfolio, and you can't search for your internship without a portfolio. And I hunkered down in a week or something of just 9 to 9. I did it, and I was super proud of it. Printed it out, started searching, spoke with a few friends, got to work at a very small office, but amazing. We're still friends to this day and still one of my clients. And yeah, it was amazing. Like the people I met, the friends I made, I have nothing but good things to say about it. And it really, I think it's one of those moments. In architecture, the great thing, a lot of architects travel. Many other professions here travel as well, but there's always been this traveling thing. I remember my colleagues they did Erasmus. I didn't do it. I thought, I'm going to keep it safe and basically finish uni, and then I'm going to travel and enjoy. And they did Erasmus, and yeah, they said it was an amazing experience. And I think to this day, that experience in Australia really kind of broadened my horizon as into seeing what other architects were doing, as into seeing different styles, different cultures. And that office really became for me what the main example of an office should be. And I think to this day, I still have a lot of managerial skills that I took from those times, because I did so many big mistakes when I was working there, and that's another story. Like really funny things. But
we can talk about funny things, but before that, you were practicing architecture over there, right? You were doing
So I was doing architecture. And naturally,
so what was your daily routine? What did you do? Like your daily tasks?
So every day I'd have basically the head architect would plan out what I had to do. So I was doing everything: design, concept design. I was measuring up. I was sites. I was everything an architect does, really, because that's one of the great things about small companies. It was not a big company. We're talking about 10 people. So I really got to see every stage of the process. The only thing I didn't do was like construction drawing, but it's a lot of planning. I was working on extensions, on new builds, on retirement homes, on all types of things that I'd never contacted with, housing, kindergartens. And it's great actually going back when I go to Australia and see a couple of those things that I got. There weren't many I got to put my hands on. It was like a year, 9 months to a year or something like that. So yeah, I was doing all types of tasks, and my daily routine would be in the morning, just basically always get in, have my coffee before I got in, and just start the day by looking at the brief that the head architect had sent at the time. And gradually, as I progressed, they started to notice that I had a knack for 3D and that I really enjoyed it. And I was very quick. At the time, it was SketchUp. So I really started to get into the SketchUp and really became good at it. And people started to see that. And I really thought, okay, I'm going to start investigating. So at the time, I started to look at Kirkathea, which could interact with SketchUp, and that was really my first contact with rendering. I remember at the time seeing V-Ray and thinking, okay, gosh, this is what is this? And 3D Max, And I started to see Mir stuff, which are kind of such a big reference in the field, and started to be blown away. And then slowly, started to see how things were done.
Okay.
So I guess
that was the point where you made up your mind that you're going to focus on that 100%
I
of the
don't
time?
think it was. I don't think it was. I think only when I started to work for myself. So I came back and I worked for another architectural firm in Lisbon. And when I worked for that architectural firm, I think I was getting even closer to knowing that indeed it was 3D. And at the time, I remember already kind of looking for companies in Portugal that just did exclusively 3D. And I remember starting to think, hey, this could be something I would do. But I knew that if I did that, there wouldn't really be a way back. It's not something that I would do for a year. I really felt a passion towards it. So I knew the day that I went to do just exclusively that would be indeed the day that I would become a visualizer. So in Portugal, I remember starting to teach the office how to use cultivating, and we started to experiment with Max and V-Ray, and we were all kind of blown away by its potential. And from that point onwards, then I started to work for myself. So I had to do a lot of work that was like tedious and really boring, which was basically all it's a very, how do you say, there's a lot of paperwork in architecture in Portugal. And the first jobs you usually get when you start to work for yourself, it's kind of, someone wants to, it's not glamorous. People think I've done glamorous stuff. No, I've passed through some really unglamorous stuff. Because, hey, it's the middle of recession. You got to get your hands down and do whatever comes at you and do it the best you can. So I had to do we call it legalizing something. So someone's built something and it's not legal 100%. You have to go there, measure it, get all construction documentation ready, kind of submit it to the council.
Okay.
I started to get designs as well, like designs from the bottom up. Starting off with nothing, and that was great. But again, then the clients that I got were not people who were, they wanted a house for their kids and to enjoy. They were not going out there for the most out there thing. So I thought, no, this is really limiting. And that's when I started to see, because I started to contact with ex-bosses, and they were like, hey, we have this thing. Can you still do 3D? And I said, yeah, of course. And from that point on, I was like, okay. And it was just another after another. I started to see, wait a minute, this is so exciting. I get to work on all these huge projects, and I get to work basically where I was at the time. And I had moved from Lisbon down to the south coast of Portugal. So I was surfing and had a very good mix of work-life balance. But yeah, it just started to evolve. And I guess at that stage when everything came together, that I enjoyed doing that. The global economy was going in a certain way, that I saw this opportunity, and I loved doing it. That's when it all came together. I think that's where I said, okay, I've got a fork in the road, and I'm just going to go right and never look back. That's what I did.
Cool. Okay. So this is great timing to ask you the elevator pitch question. Okay, so same thing as everyone else. You're stuck in an elevator with a dream client. You only have 30 seconds to make an impression. What would you say? What would you say?
Oh gosh, you're asking me this after a long day of creative work. What would I say to get him to work with me?
Yeah, like knock him down. Like he has to work with you after that one.
Okay, that's a tricky one. My elevator pitch is basically, okay, let me see. You're putting me on the spot here. How could I approach this? Well, what type of architect? The dream client, yeah? So dream client's seen everything, right?
Yeah.
So dream client, if he's seen everything, you really have to take it to that next limit.
Yeah, so, that's why I say it doesn't really matter if you show him a visual, because
I wouldn't show him anything. I'd basically say, look, I love your stuff. I get one opportunity to tell you this, but basically, I have some really good visuals. They might not be as good as you think they are. You've probably seen better, but I promise you, if you work with us, we'll make something amazing. Or I'd start selling it to him, and I'd start trying to get him like in a way of a conversation. So I'd first get him to converse, and then I'd start to see. But yeah, I don't think I mean, how do you convince a person that's seen everything?
That's the challenge.
You know,
Well,
it's a
yeah,
tricky one. I would
yeah.
really just, you know what the main thing is in all this? I would speak. That was the thing. If you speak, you're one step closer to selling something to them. And if they speak back, I would continue a conversation. Say, hey, so what do you do in your free time? And from then on, we'll get a conversation going. I sell it to him. Sorry, I didn't sell this to you, but
No, but
but
we'll dive deeper. We'll dive deeper. So let's move ahead. So if I'm asking you now, what's the single core reason that you do what it is you do day after day after day? What is it that one thing, the drive factor for you in doing architecture visualization? What aspect of it?
the drive factor is that I think sincerely, I mean, I'm always telling this to the team when we're together. We are some of the luckiest people on earth to do what we love, to have great clients, to work with the best, which was like this was yeah this I just look back like 8 years ago, and I think I always remember seeing like all these great clients, all these great at the time it was not clients, people that could employ me. And I remember like one day we're going to work together, one day. And this sticks in the back of your mind. It's this constant, repetitive, one day we'll be amongst them. We'll be amongst the best. We'll do the best. And that drive, there's a lot of people we want to work with. And there's a lot of great architects and great firms out there that we want to work with. But this sticks in the back of your mind. And this constant, everyday, rehearsing this to yourself and finding that extra drive to, when you're tired, still continue to do it. Always try and do your best. Study more and more about the field. I think that's a big driver, but that can't exist without the passion. I mean, I'm a very passionate person, right? I'm passionate for everything. So in business, in everything I do, when I meet people, next minute I'm like hugging them. I think, who the hell is this guy? This crazy guy. But that's the way, and that's the thing about what you're saying on your elevator pitch is, I would be me. I would start talking. I would say I love their work, and from then on, that's where you advance. I wouldn't go with a 100% sales pitch, because these guys, I get this every day as well. But just coming back a little bit into basically what we're talking about. So yeah, I think that what keeps you doing this every day is that you love it. I mean, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days, you have days you wish you would never have done this. But if you went in your moments where you kind of go, hey, this has been a crazy day. I'm so tired. It's been a busy one. Today's one of those. So if I'm dragging this a little bit, I'm sorry. But yeah, when you look back and you go, wait, I'm so lucky because I get to do something that I love. It's something that I've discovered along my life. I didn't know 10 years ago I'd be a visualizer, and I didn't know in uni I'd be a visualizer. So it's been something that my path has crossed the professional path, and it's gone, well, this is a perfect mix. So I think that really kind of gives you a great incentive, and to be lucky to interact with talented people. I mean, Ronan, I followed your website when you were in 400 people, right? And today you're like 90,000 or something or more on Facebook. Yeah, and what's gotten me to be here speaking to you when I never thought that this would happen, like many other people in the architectural visualization world, is pure hard work and passion and just drive. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it is. And if there's something I can say about the work that I'm seeing on your website, and I'm browsing it right now, and obviously I'm familiar with your work from way back, but you have this kind of style that is consistent over the years, and it doesn't seem you sway away from it, whereas other studios that used to do these kinds of, more like an artistically inclined visualization towards doing things that are pure 3D, more simulated approach to visualization, then you seem to remain steadfast in what it is you do. And your images, the studio images, are unique in their mood and in their lighting and the feeling they evoke. And I think each time you share something on the blog, it immediately captures my attention and a lot of others. And obviously, many of them become best of week images. So tell us a little bit about what it is that makes you do the visuals the way you do it. How did you scale that into the studio level? Because now it's not just you have artists doing, same kind of work that you did. So tell us a little bit about the approach for crafting visualizations at Arqui9.
Okay, that's a really you've touched on something really interesting, which is style, and you mentioned that. Thank you, firstly, for what you've mentioned, because that means a lot coming from you. I'm really appreciative of that. But it is, you did touch on something, which was style, and style, how style sometimes translates almost into technique, right? So you can see that our images aren't a finessed, I don't find them a finessed, refined product where everything is 100% right. And that's a little bit to do with the technique and the work that we do. So we do a lot of concept work, which is quite quick and has to be output quite fast. And at the same time, coming from my background is more into the post-production and photography. The studio, I tend to pass that on a little bit onto the studio. So everyone who's coming into this workflow, and I mean, they can be painterly artists. Let's call them painterly artists, or more 3D inclined artists. But whoever comes through tends to get a little bit of that mix. This next question that you had is super interesting as well, which is in regards to how do the people that come into the office, how can you translate this, right? How can you pass this on? Because if you're inclined in that way, you're going to suppose that others are inclined in that way, or that other people should generally, for it to work as a business as well, should be inclined in that way. And that's something that I've been learning. I'm learning every day, so I haven't got this figured out at all, and I'm still kind of learning the approach. But it seems that everyone somehow can pick this up. Some people, they have a natural inclination towards it, this style of things, and other people just with pure motivation and work tend to go about it. So what we're trying to do at the moment is kind of not look at like we have to output this in a specific technique. And no, yes, it may have a little bit of that look that we're going for usually, or that's just become a part of us and the way we work as a collective. But at the same time, we're trying to bring in what each artist does best. So if we find a really good 3D artist, we're gonna take on his or her input, and at the same time, we're going to show them a little bit of how we do it. So we're going to show them the way on how we can connect the two things together. So at this stage, I would say the output, yes, the style is not exclusively driven by a technique at the moment. So, and I mean, yeah, our style, when it starts being a bit out of date, I guess that we also have to keep on top of, and we have to change things around. At the moment, it goes down quite well because it's what it's described is humanistic. So there's an interaction from a human point of view and the way that people view it, and they seem to apprehend it with their emotions, and that kind of creates a stronger connection or a quicker connection. And this is great because it's the style we love to do. So it tends to work. But yeah, I mean, there's there's a couple of tricky things. I think didn't this make sense, Brendan? I'm probably
Yeah.
babbling, but yeah.
No. That's information we should hear and figure out, compare what it is we do, what it is you do. That's the way you learn.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
yeah. Go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to say one important thing to kind of get everything out of the way. We're not, our style is not better or worse than anyone's. Our way of doing is not better or worse than everyone's. What I've learned over the years in seeing your blog, seeing other websites, is that everyone has a way of doing it and that there's no correct way. It's what functions for everyone. And I mean, I'm a great appreciator of, I'm on ArtStation all the time, as I'm on your website, as I'm on many other websites and many other artists. And I'm constantly learning from them, photographers, 3D artists. I mean, I've seen some amazing stuff. I was just at D2 and I saw these guys were doing some amazing, I think it was Arc Media, and they did some amazing boat interiors and the animations for the water and everything. I was like blown away. It was amazing, like the stuff that was showing. And it was a completely different style to everything we do. But like the detail, I appreciate the detail. I appreciate the finesse of the composition, of the lighting. And I guess that translates to art in every single thing. I don't have to be a dancer to appreciate seeing dance. It's one of those things. But yeah, anyway. So.
Okay. So a little bit more about the way the work is being done in the studio. Is it one artist per project or per image from start to finish, or do you have a more collaborative workflow?
Our workflow is very collaborative. So it's a little bit of both. So we generally like to spread out the imagery amongst artists. So we'll give a pick and choose to whoever has a personal inclination towards. We have a set of images. Whoever has a personal inclination towards a certain image, we'll try and work that out. Sometimes we all want the same one, but generally, what happens, that person will start out with it, but doesn't mean that artist will finish the image. It's all driven by times, by schedules. And being a small team, there's a certain. So we're about 6, 7 at the moment. 7 person is basically abroad and does things for us on and off. But we're about 6, 7, and it tends to work well. It's perfect. I mean, it seems to be a perfect number so far. We've not grown above this yet. We've reached this number and it seems to work well. We'll see how the business goes. I think that also depends on where we want to go with the business. If we want to take it really into being a kind of a complete platform and a much bigger team, or do we stay like this for a while and we see, well, this is all things that I'm still seeing.
So the way you do the images, you have to sign off the angles at the early stage, right? So you will be able to focus on doing the post-production once you are set on, the view you're going to work on. Am I correct?
Yes. Well, ideally, yes. You should have the camera angles pretty much fixed. There's a little bit of back and forth in the process and a little bit of leeway. But if it so happens that we develop a whole image and we have to change the camera at the very end, everyone thinks this is the biggest panic in the world. A lot of people go, oh, what are you going to do? I mean, you've already done it. And of course, if you've got a great 3D, it's easier in that aspect. But the client is aware that if that happens, there will have to be extra charges or extra time. So that's not too much of a problem. We try and get it signed off in the beginning, of course. But sometimes, hey, we're halfway through the process and we start to understand it's not working. So sometimes we have to alter the camera because we're not happy with the output. But yeah, you do want to get it signed off as soon as you can. But then again, there's flexibility in the program to change if need be.
Okay. Does it restrict you to doing mostly still images?
Yeah, that's a great question. It does. It does restrict. Our process is restrictive in that it does, in certain aspects, go to just still images. If we're working on a project we know is going to be the but we know this
Animation.
project, it's going to be animation work. We have to, from the ground up, treat it as an animation. So we have to kind of look at the assets, look at what we're doing, look at the output, and bring all that together to become an animation. And at the same time, it depends, because if you're driving the stills, you're doing it from a different perspective. If you're doing the two things, again, if you're doing it in tandem, you do have to take one thing and the other into consideration and organize that. But that comes...
Is that a little bit foreign for you? I mean, doing animation.
I mean, it's something that we're getting more into, but we've become still specialists, and we've done a couple things which we have not, as usual, like 90% of the work we do have not seen the light of day. But or if they see the light of day, the client does tell, take it down. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. But it was a good one, by the way.
But that's a totally different story. I'm so bummed. Just for whoever doesn't know, we basically published something and the client told us, no, you can't publish it. And we thought it was public. And we thought, okay, we've had this up on the website forever, and they added 2 new images, I think it was, and no, take them down. And it was, what? And then it 1 image of the week, and then we had to take it down as well. So hopefully it's going to come out soon. It's
sometime.
I've heard like it's launching like this week. I've sent an email asking if we can publish it. So let's see. Knock on wood.
Cool. This session is sponsored by Access Design, the makers of Anima, the all-in-one crowd management tool developed to make the process of adding 3D people to your still images and animations fast and easy. Find out more about Anima and their 3D people library by clicking on their link or banner in the show notes. So let me try and connect what we discussed so far in terms of the way you do the still images and a little bit of technology brought into the mix. So the way you do the work, and I'm familiar with it and I've seen it, you've written 2 making-ofs for the blog, and your website has a way to see images like the pure render and then the final one, and you do a really good job at sharing from time to time on social media work that that the studio did, and you show the raw render and the end result, and the difference is huge between the two. But then that brings me to ask this thing. So it doesn't really, and you tell me what you think about it. It doesn't really matter what it is you use to do the 3D modeling and what it is you use to do the rendering, because the initial render, I'm not saying this in a bad way, it could be something that you rendered like 10, 15 years ago on something like, whatever was available back then. And the magic actually is the artist using Photoshop and, instilling his own experience over the years into that image. So in terms of technology, you're quite lean. You don't need anything sophisticated, right? And you just need Photoshop, a Wacom, and a good base render.
I wish it were that simple. But yeah, what you're saying in essence was true probably a year and a half, 2 years ago that we were at that point. But things have been, of course, evolving. But yeah, definitely there is, in all our process, what Photoshop does for us, right? And this is the thing. It's not to talk about Photoshop. It's not to talk about 3D Max. And I've thought about doing actually a tutorial on this. Imagine a desk. Imagine a car, right? And imagine anything foreign to us that we're not working on. So let's say a car. So imagine if you have the possibility of changing the tires of the car, the color, the whatever, the make of it, like in a second, without having to call the guys from the company to change the rims and then put the tires and put certain tires. So this is what Photoshop is. Photoshop in that sense is you can take decisions very quickly very fast, and any type of decision. And I mean, if you look at architecture, especially competition-wise, I mean, things are happening in 3 days. A whole project is happening in 3 days. So, in essence, we've adapted to a process that has very much become the competition process. But when we do have other work, like we have marketing work as well, you may not see it as much, but we're doing 360 work, we're doing VR work. So this is now the continuation of starting to understand how this works, what we do in the way of thinking, how we can adapt that. Now, it's not so easy in 3D work. It takes a little more. Not to say it can't be done, but it's not in the same realm of quickness. Speed. Not for us, at least, at the moment. Not to say that some people might not be able to do it. But yeah, I mean, if in reality, like the 3D program, it may not look like it's an essential thing, but it's very essential. And understanding, like when we switched to V-Ray to Corona, for instance, so I complained on the internet and I said, where's the, what was it? The raw shadow or raw lighting pass? Where's this? I can find that. I mean, where's the specular pass?
I think I remember that one.
Yeah, and it was like everyone was like crazy. Okay, guys, relax. I just asked something really simple, but basically, so yeah, you have to adapt as well to the 3D engine, render engine, or program you're using, and that takes time. Like we had V-Ray down. We understood V-Ray, how the passes were working. And once we got into Corona, it took a couple of tries to get that feel and get the technique down. So it may not look like it, but it is. I mean, you do have to have it down. You have to understand how materials come out of one render engine, how the passes are coming out. And I mean, yeah, that kind of limits you, and you have to relearn that in some aspects. So yeah, I mean, it can be lean, definitely, the essence of what we do and probably what I was doing a couple of years ago. But it takes also a lot of time to investigate photography, to take your own photography. So it's not like it's a quick process, but there's a lot that goes into it. We have a huge, enormous library of assets, photography assets for each situation. And we even subscribe to other ones like GoboTree. And even then, sometimes we just can't find what we need, and we have to model it from scratch, or basically find some way of doing it that's simple, alter a model that we have, and yeah, it's a process in itself.
Okay, so my next question would be: how do you pick an artist that's going to work in your studio? What are the things, like 3 things that are most important to you when you consider a new artist coming on board?
Okay. Well, the first thing, without any question of a doubt, is a good person. So someone that's very nice to talk to, has kind of got their mind in the right place, is a really humble artist. So they're not like, well, I'm really good at this and I do this better than everyone. So we've experienced that, and that doesn't work at all. And someone who's good with the team as well. That's like that all comes under one core, which is like being a good person. That you can't teach. A good morale, a good mentality, you cannot teach. The rest you can, fortunately, teach. So that's really the first step. Second step that we're looking at is have references. You cannot believe how many people you ask, who are your references? And they struggle to find references. So if you're not referencing, if you're not looking at, cinema, if you're not looking at other people's work, you're not looking at good photographers, good architects, what are you referencing in life? It doesn't mean that you have to do this, but who were your examples? This leads on to a few other things, which is like, what do you want to be? What's your plan for life? You don't have to have that from an early age, but it's good to have that vision, that understanding. If you have that vision, you somehow have that drive as well to get you to that vision. So that's a big second one. The references, that says a lot about a person. Third one is being good. at what they do. So if they're
A
good at
good
three,
portfolio.
yeah, being good. Yeah, portfolio is really amazing. Of course, that's probably the third one. Being good at what they do kind of involves that. Having a portfolio that has some good work. I'm not going to lie, good work gets you very far. And that's amazing. But notice it's like the third thing. So if we had an interviewee come, and I was stupefied, basically. So why are you here? That's the question. Why did you choose us? Because I'm looking around for a job. But yeah, but why? A friend of mine told you had a free place. And I didn't mean to sound bad about this, but like, if you're driving your life with this type of passion of your friends telling, well, it's free and I'm just going to go, and you don't know anything about the company, you don't know anything where you're going, you don't know anything about the work, that's not going to be the way to get it. You're spending your time, you're spending everyone else's time. So yeah, I mean, I had that once and I was like, what? I can't believe that. And it's not because it's us, but I remember when I went to interviews, I mean, I remember at the time I even told Nick from Uniform this, and D2, I said, you know what? When you guys called me for an interview, I was blown away. Like, I was a big fan of your stuff. Same thing with Vionics that I went to. I said, like, I can't believe you contacted me. I'm blown away. So I knew everything they did. I love their stuff. I didn't go in the end because I wanted to go to London and got a job offer in London straight away. So with Vionics, so I thought, no, I'm going to do this. But equally blown away by their stuff. They were working with all the big guys, Fuchs's, Foster's, Zaha, and this was like incredible. It was an impact for me. So yeah, there you go.
Cool. You mentioned before that the best place is London. Wow, why is London the best place?
Well, I don't know. Everyone's there. It's a very central place for ArchViz. So London is amazing in that architecture is super respected. I had this talk with Ricardo Eloy, and London is really incredible. It's a hub of creativity and respected as well. Architecture has such a respect in London. I mean, I encourage everyone to really, who's an architect, to go there and see the big firms. I mean, it's incredible, the architecture, REBA, the Architectural Association here, it's just got so much power in the way they do things. It's so good. And that kind of in itself generates this, and taking all the other things into consideration, it's banking central, it's got all the capital here, but all those, just those things that of having great atmosphere, architecture being so important, that in itself generates all these other things. So I didn't know there was before I moved, I'd say a year or two before I moved here, I didn't know that architectural visualization, the studios were so big and it was such a big thing to be doing. I thought VFX would do the type of work that architectural visualization was doing. And when I came here and I was like, no, but wait a minute, there are firms that are doing VFX stuff, architectural visualization firms that are pretty much doing the output of virtual effects. And yeah, I was blown away. So there's that, and there's a big amount of people that are available to do the work, that are ready and that are really well qualified, and that all these things generate a hub. I think I've probably missed stuff, but that, in my opinion, is probably what's generated this amazing gathering of people.
I get the sense for it through the blog. I mean, it's clearly shown that London has something unique about it in terms of the architecture visualization field.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you must have even more data on this. So you tell me.
What I want to do is to go back to what you mentioned about when you were an intern in Australia at the Office of Architecture, and mentioned about the managerial skills that you've picked up during your time there. Mm-hmm. So I think it would be interesting to learn about a few of these and how you made the implementation from what worked in an architecture office into your visualization practice. So what was it that you learned during the time there?
In terms of managerial, is that?
Yeah.
Well, I had one of the greatest bosses. He always had time. He showed me how to kind of manage. I couldn't believe how good of a person he was. He always kept his cool. I'm a bit hot-head, yeah. But hey, I blame it on being Portuguese. But 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 yeah, so I'm quite passionate about what I did. But he showed me, yeah, he always maintained his cool. He was super respectful of everyone on the team. He was the first in and last out. So he always drove by example he was there. Like when I arrived, he was already there. And when I was going, he was still there. And he would tell me, like, it would come to like 6 o'clock, 6:15 or 5:30. Sorry, they got out there at 5:30. 5:45, and he would say, Pedro, well, what are you doing? This was on the first day. I said, oh, okay, I'm here. No, it's time to go home. And I thought, this is amazing. So we worked hard during the day. We did what we had to do. And somehow it all came together. And at the end of the day, we could get out on time. And this has been one of the things that I've taken away as well. If you enjoy what you do it during the day. You can more or less manage the times to get out on time. And yeah, just the sheer respect for people. If you respect a person, that can go a long way. And telling them you're doing a great job, that's another thing, or knowing that we all have off days, that I might have an off day, one of the guys here might have an off day. Respecting that and understanding that, that's also really important. So I guess not to take into consideration, things like, because I didn't have access to reports and all these types of things and hours and logging the hours and all these things. These I've learned along the way. But all these types of key essential things, which I saw in him and I still see in him. His name is Mike, by the way. And if he's listening, I should send this to him. He will be very happy.
Yeah, sure.
But such an example for me and for being such a great person. So, yeah, then again, those were the key principal elements for me of managing a team. And then if you understand that and you're rational and you coordinate yourself and you brief in the morning, so he'd brief always in the morning, get everything ready. He already had the day before ready, so he knew what was to be done the next day, and I had the brief on my table in the morning. I was ready to start. And I learned this as well, which is kind of always leave the next day thought about. And that was another key thing. So you sleep better, you do better work because you know when to do it, you know how to do it. Sometimes it's impossible. But yeah, if you do these couple of things as well, anyone really, you don't have to manage a business. You can be freelance, you can work for someone else, but they're super helpful. So I think, yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about Arqui9
Arqui9 yeah.
Arqui9 Learn, yeah. So you did mention a little bit about teaching architects at the office. Maybe it was the second one in Lisbon about how to use 3D software and how to do visualization. So you took it into this Arqui9 Learn initiative. You have a website, and I've seen you shared videos, and maybe you also have a Gumroad website where people can actually download some of this stuff. So tell us a little bit about this and your goals with this. Is it something that is still ongoing? You're still dedicating time for it? What are the plans for this segment of what you do?
Arqui9 Learn, for whoever doesn't know, I started the YouTube firstly. So I wanted to demystify. So there were never any tutorials when I was studying. There were a few from Vionics, very few that could relate. I think Pixel Flakes did some as well. They did some really good ones when I was starting out. They kind of said, right, I even commented, I think it was on your blog, and I said, wow, this is how Mir does it, for sure. And I thought, well, there's not much out there to really show people how to do it. And I thought, at the time, I thought the industry is going in a very photorealistic, very certain style. And I thought, But there are more things to this, and I'm going to have my say. It may not be the best, but I'm going to show people that it's not like a mystic thing that can't be done. And I remember people always were, is that done in 3D or is that done in 2D? And I mean, what does it matter really? The output is what matters, but at the same time, I wanted to show people, hey, it can be done like this, and there's some key essential things that I've learned with it. And that's really how it started off, the YouTube. Arqui9 Learn Arqui9 Learn, I thought, well, this can become a little bit of a platform thing just for post-production and for the type of work we do. So it slowly evolved the YouTube into that, and one kind of bounces off the other. They're not 100% organized and 100% coherent with each other, and I think that's because it's my little side project, and it's the passion that I have for teaching. And if I heard myself saying this 15 years ago, everyone, I would just say, because I said, I'm never going to be a teacher. Bloody hell, I wouldn't stand students like myself. But anyway, I discovered this passion for teaching. So then, before I talk about the Arqui9 Learn going into the webpage and the YouTube, so when I started to do YouTube and I started to get invited at the same time to do, actually it was probably before the YouTube or after, I started to get invited to do like conferences, speaking. I got one which was a computer festival in Bulgaria. And I went there and I met some amazing people, and I spoke for, I probably think it was the first time. So I was quite green about it. And I started to say, wait, this is pretty awesome to teach people. And this is amazing to have people say, I love that thing you did. How'd you do it? And that kind of, a bell went off in my head, and I thought, wow, this is really amazing. I really enjoy doing this. And hearing the feedback from people and starting off conversation. I'm a really social guy, so I like to talk. I like to have a drink, talk, eat my cheese and prosciutto. I'm that type of guy. So I thought, hey, this is really going with my style of being. It gets our work out there as well, which is great, of course. You want your work out there. If it's noticed, you get people to come and ask you for work. So I thought, shit, well, this is a 2-in-1 whammy, I get to release stuff, but I also get the good feedback and I get work. So I thought, shit, this is really good. So this was the natural evolution of it. And then it went into the platform. And I think on the platform, I thought, this is not there to be making, I'm not going to be making a living off this, if you can say that. Things that are sold are relatively at a cheap price, and not everything is sold. Our content is like freemium. So I put the YouTube video out with everything, and then I have a side PSD or file that people can download and contribute if they want to. They don't have to. And I thought, well, this is a good way of me still giving to the community, but at the same time being able to get a little bit of my time and pay it, because, I'm doing this basically in my free time, which I can tell you it's very little. So I'm taking from my free time, I'm taking just in pure passion I have for this and the communication that I have to do this. And at a certain point, there is potential there for something in Arqui9 Learn. I think I'm still kind of working on this at the moment, but Arqui9 Learn at the moment is really to show what Arqui9 is about and how we do things, and open up people's minds, really. And every time I go to a conference or somewhere, people I've had people from other firms, Tegmark, basically tell me, my whole team has started off with your tutorials on YouTube. That's how we teach our team. And that for me is like,
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm blown away. I'm like, shit, man, that blows you away, especially if you respect their work. And that was, well, I better not say or not say it.
That's a great feeling. I can relate to that.
Yeah, I'm sure people come up to you and tell you the same. Ronan, bloody hell, man, I can tell you, Ronan, your blog, I learned a lot off that. I still remember that nighttime picture that you had with the nighttime sky, that you're elevated and you have the moon or something. I still remember that. It was one of your
the building at the Red Sea in Eilat and something.
Yeah. I mean, I still remember the leaf tutorial. You remember the scattering leaves with the object painter that you published? And I was, that blew me away. And I think for someone who does that, that's the best feeling.
For sure. Yeah. So we're hitting the 1 hour mark, which is remarkable. The time really flies. I could
Wow.
hardly feel.
I
I
thought that
could
was
hardly
like
feel we.
half an
Yeah.
hour.
So
I talk a
yeah.
lot.
So I usually wrap it up asking how people can reach you, find information about you. I already know you're going to speak at 3D Symposium, right? It's in
Yeah.
Barcelona this year, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to speak at 3D Symposium. So if you just search online 3D Symposium Barcelona this year with some amazing friends and artists which are going to be there. So Aldo Garcia, Bergan Gonzalez, Beauty and the Bit will be there as well. And those are just a few. And also a guy from ILM, Jaime Jasso, I think. So yeah, I'm super thrilled about that. Went to Vienna, which was also amazing. So, I mean, yeah, try and go to conferences as much as possible. I haven't been for a couple of years just because I've been so busy, but I'm definitely making time for that this year to visit people. And yeah, we have the website, so arqui9learn.com, arqui9.com to see our work, and on YouTube, of course, which is youtube.com/arqui9 visualization, I believe. So yeah, those are the main platforms to reach us and see our work, and let us know your feedback, basically, on what you've been up to and doing.
Perfect.
That's
Okay,
my
so yeah.
that's my promo.
Cool. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for taking your time, and I'm pretty sure my listeners are going to like this one. So thank you. Until next time. So this year we are missing each other because you're in Barcelona and I'm going to be in Venice.
Yeah. Next
Day.
year.
And start showing up in other venues. So
I'm gonna definitely. I need to. But yeah, thank you so much, Ronan. Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
inviting me. You're pushing basically in this, so you're doing well. And thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, I'm sorry I can't do more time wise. I'm gonna love to.
But now we can always do session number 2 when you have something new or there's something exciting, and so
hopefully I didn't stuff it up. So, but thank you, man. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so thank you very much, and goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
That concludes this week's session. Big thanks to Pedro for doing this interview with me after a long day of work at the office. You'll be able to catch up with him at 3D Symposium in Barcelona on October 7th, where he is one of the speakers. You can find session highlights, links, and more in the show notes on thespectrum.com. Please send me any feedback you may have about the show and future guests you'd like me to interview. Have a great week, everyone. Be good, do good.